All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. We got the post-workout cool down happening here at Friends in the the empty B'nai Tikva building here on just off of Elbow. Glad you're with us tonight. I don't know what else you might be doing at least here in Calgary. It's snowy and kind of miserable out, so you're probably not out and about even walking your dog right now. So we got a captive audience. I saw Don Prestige online. He's viewing us from Hawaii. So Don, screw you, man. We're happy you guys are here anyways. This is kind of our opportunity to be able to weigh in on our own thoughts, your questions from the events of the weekend, the service specifically. Welcome, Vince Clausen. He was the speaker on Sunday, and so I'm going to invite you. I have Facebook Live opened on my phone right now, and so occasionally I'll flip over to YouTube Live. But if you really want to make sure that I see your question, you might be wise to do it on Facebook Live. I just don't want to miss you, so forgive me. I'll do my best there. Vince, how are you?
I'm well. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good.
You want to mute your phone?
Yeah, I can turn it down. Would you like that?
It's playing like a 15-second delay of this.
Big of a loop there. So tell me first of all, when we start off with, we began a series on Sunday.
Yeah, the Apocalypse series.
Yeah, so why don't you start there and kind of give us the kind of high-level rundown why you think this is so important right now?
Well, really, we were in the middle of a relationship series, and then all hell broke loose in the world, really. Remember at the beginning of it, we were kind of like, hey, wonder if this is the thing we have to worry about. And about 4 days later, we're all locked in our homes, dealing with this, right? And so we had this whole lovely series that, in light of what we're dealing with, just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so we said, what if we do a series about right now? But the problem is, I don't know about you, but no one knows.
We don't know what's going on.
This is my first worldwide pandemic.
Yeah.
After we've had 3 or 4 under our belts,
Yeah.
we'll all be like, this is no big deal.
Let's just pull the notes from that last time. Yeah.
So we, and it really comes down to, I was thinking about this the other day. The metaphor I used on Sunday was a midwife. So a woman gets pregnant for the first time. Everything's changing in her body. Everything's changing in her life. She has no clue. She's coming towards that birth time. She knows when that's coming. And if I were her, I'd be freaking out because I have no clue what's going on. And then another woman who's had 4 or 5 children comes alongside her and says, hey, let me walk you through this. This is normal. This is normal. No, you're all good. Okay, I know it's freaky, but we got this.
Right.
So suddenly you have this kind of like someone who knows more. I was thinking about the climbing gym the other day. I invite people to come to my climbing gym, and usually they're late because they don't have a clue what to do. They walk in, they don't know that you have to go to the desk, and then you put your shoes over here, and no one's going to steal your shoes, and then you go get changed over there. Like, they have no clue what to do. And so they're just kind of standing there looking around, and it feels like, in some senses, we, collectively, are standing looking around going, what are we supposed to do here?
Now, you referred to the midwives
Yeah.
as kind of maybe a metaphor of our ancestors
Well,
who
anybody.
maybe have been here before us or
Yeah.
whoever. So,
Worldwide pandemic, and that's what took me right to Noah. Like, the story of Noah is about a worldwide flood. So it's about his, this could end the world kind of thing. That's what it feels like right here. So you look at the parallel of that story against, should I go to the grocery store today? There's a lot of stuff going on there that makes a lot of sense. And so now I can watch someone else's experience of it without having to experience mine at the same time and go, well, what did he do?
yeah.
What made sense? Or, that's good stuff right there.
Yeah, you kind of took that story apart and told it through other lenses. I heard people commenting, man, they'd never really heard that story told before that way, or maybe could have some takeaways the way that you pulled out.
Well, and bear with me, that's my reading of the story. So, right?
Yeah, let's be clear.
Yeah, it's
right.
Vince's
It's not
reading.
the authority.
But really, that speaks to a Friend Church value that I think is crazy
Yeah.
important to understand. If you've come to Friend Church for any length of time, you know that we're not really interested in the historicity of these stories. Meaning, is this an actual, legitimate, historical event that happened exactly this way? I don't know about you, but that is not that interesting to me. Then I have to ask the question, can you put two of every kind of animal in a boat made by some dude who's never built a boat before and float it for 150 days and figure out how much crap those things produce and what do you do with it and who feeds the tigers and like there's all these things that make or aren't even interesting at all. It just becomes a question of can you actually do that? Well, the answer is no.
Right.
So then now the story gets thrown out.
Yeah. So it becomes a very problematic piece for many people who read it very literally. They go, whoa, I don't know if I can take the story seriously if I have to buy all these different pieces.
Well, I grew up with a community that took the story very literally. This is actually what happened. And that was comforting to them. For me, it's not been comforting. To me, it's more a story that I don't care if it happened. What's the stuff of Vince in there? What's Vince's story? What's Jeff's story? What's your story? That's what I'm super interested in.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. You kind of looked at Noah heading into the ark, much similar, as you said, to us heading into COVID-19.
Yeah.
But you made some assumptions, perhaps, of what might be going on inside of him. Talk about a couple of those things that you talked about, well, I think a couple things.
I kept saying
the uncertainty of how long this thing was going to be.
Yeah. For me, it was, here's a guy in a homemade boat floating over chaos with the weight of the world on his back. To me, that's the story. And it's not a guy, it's humans in homemade masks walking through the grocery store trying to figure out how they're not going to infect everyone that they love. Like I keep going through that line in my head and it goes, I feel like that's what we're dealing with every day here.
Let's just talk about like the uncertainty around how long this might go and what that creates inside of people. What do you see?
Let's go. Let me answer that question two ways. One, it's fascinating to watch the evolution. First 2 weeks, grocery stores almost seemed like everyone was going to explode. We're all carrying like bombs on us, and if you get too close to someone, they'll blow up and they'll kill you. So like everyone was super freaked out. Then we had a shift, and it kind of felt like, okay, we all kind of figured out our spacing. We kind of figured this out. It all became very friendly again. I was at the grocery store yesterday, and again, it started to feel one guy stood too close to another guy, and they were just about to get into a fight about it.
I was walking my dog, and Kathy was with me. We're walking down the sidewalk, and I forget about social distance, physical distancing. And we're walking along, I'm kind of in my own head, and there's people coming, and there's a fence on one side of the sidewalk, and I'm on the inside, and these people are
like, you jerk, what are you doing?
I am tuned out. I'm kind of, smiling at him, and Kathy's, if she could have reached me, she would have booted me. She's like, can you not separate? I went, oh, I'm sorry. Hey, I'm sorry.
They're like jackass.
Yeah. I could tell they were just not excited at all to say hi. Or I was oblivious, but there is that sense of, I think we forget even. We go through that hyper stage of vigilance, glove up, Lysol, and then we kind of relax. I feel that. I feel even I had to go into the grocery store. And it wasn't until I got out of the car, started walking in, and everyone around me has all the masks on, everything. I'm like, I didn't even put on a mask. So
now, again, I don't want to get into the social part of this because that's not really my area of expertise, or the epidemiology of this. To me, my background is biblical studies, so I'm curious to know what we see there of our lives. Every generation, I think, has to take these stories and reinterpret it. I don't know that I'll ever be able to read Noah's story without thinking of this crisis.
Yeah.
One of the pieces that really stuck out to me was this idea of a flood. So for us, it's floods as a natural event, too much water. But flood in their day and age, that word means more like chaos. And so I started looking around at our world of like, when do we experience chaos? And even now, what I hear you describing is different flavors of the chaos as we go through it, right? Now it's the chaos of should I wear a mask or not? It's unknown. I read online that, yeah, it helps. No, it doesn't help. Yes, it helps. No, it doesn't help. It's making it worse. It's making it better. And so there's this chaos of, well, what? There's nothing firm to stand on.
Mm-hmm.
If someone came out and said, we studied it, we figured it out, boom, here's the answer. This mask works, this mask doesn't work, story end. Now we're back into solid. But we're not. We're constantly in this floating thing where it's just, what ends up?
Duration.
Okay, so yeah, let me go back to that. I got a little rabbit traily.
Like just you talked a lot about just the fact that Noah didn't have a clue how long he was going to be in that boat for.
Yeah.
We're kind of in a very similar thing.
Two pieces. One, stress. Whenever you deal with stress in the human body, you deal with two things, the amount and the duration of it. You can handle a whole lot for a very short period of time. But if you try and extend that over time, your ability to handle that stress starts to degrade. Your cells start to break down. You start having immunity issues, like all kinds of stuff. And so whenever you have a long-term stressor, it's much different than a short-term. And that's why this thing, for the first 3 weeks, we were like, okay, guys, buckle down. Like, let's do this. We got this. And now it's kind of feeling like, holy crap. Like, I did the first couple of weeks, but now, if it goes on forever, like...
It was interesting. I was just at home and watched a press conference. So our premier here in Alberta, Jason Kenney, just went on tonight.
Okay.
And he just
I missed that one.
He basically spelled out what we're in for. And he said, I'm not candy coding this. I want to spell out how long we're realistically in this window for, how far we can see out. And what I heard him saying was, there's how much it's going to cost. This is how long realistically before we can let up. They think the thing is going to climax, like in terms of total number of cases in Alberta here, he's suggesting around May 15th. So, I mean, I was thinking, hey, we're talking 2 weeks. All of a sudden I'm like, they keep saying 2 weeks. So I could feel the stress.
Yeah, can't you
started.
feel it?
It's just like, wait a second. When did that start? When did they say 2 weeks? Because we feel like.
But let's be clear. It's not that your stress increases per se. It's that your body naturally does a bunch of math to figure out, if I have to carry this much stress for that long?
Well, like if we're talking 2 Fridays from now, and then all of a sudden we're 4 days away from that Friday, and they then say 2 weeks, now you're going, oh, wait a second, the target's moving. Yeah. You're right. So it's not like there's been more added to it. It's just the uncertainty of how long. So I could see
and there's
Kinney.
2 pieces. So even if he says, look, 3 days. Can everyone do 3 days of this? I got 3 days dialed in.
Yeah.
Netflix won't run out by then, right?
Yeah.
If they say a half a year, I'm freaking out. Nothing has changed in my experience, but and I didn't get to talk about this at all. There's a circuit in your brain that basically does the energy math for anything someone says to you. If I say, hey, Jeff, you want to run a marathon? Your brain, well, actually, first it'll say, no, that's dumb. But let's just say you're a runner who does 5Ks.
That's a quick conversation right there in my head.
If you're a 5K runner or a half marathon, I say, do you want to go do a marathon tonight? Your brain right away will do the math of how much energy do I have, how much do I eat, and how much do I sleep? Can I do this? And it'll go yes or no. And often you'll see people, without them realizing it, their brain's just going, me and you have this conversation regularly. You'll be like, hey, can we do this on Sundays? You actually just heard him say, hey, can we wouldn't it be nice to have music?
Yeah.
I unmuted you when you said that. I was
I see you freaking out going,
Jeff, you're live, shut
I'm
up.
like, oh, well, it'd be nice.
And again, my brain right away does a bunch of math to say, to do that, I need to do So our brains all do that. So that's the first part of this puzzle of, even if you know the duration, your brain will do a bunch of math to say, do I have the energy?
Right.
And if it doesn't, if it's scared of running out of energy, you're going to be like, and some people, based on their past, their primitives are very, very tuned to that. My mom was always very tuned to that. If she felt like she was going to run out of energy, she would stop it way early. She did not want to run herself to the edge. So you're going to have differences in that.
Yeah.
But then there's an added piece. And I think this is just me guessing, people. If you don't know the duration, an optimist will always make a short number, and a pessimist will make a long number. So I hear people saying all the time, is this ever going to end? This will probably go on forever. And I'm going, well, folks, chances are it won't go on forever. Like, we can do the math and say it'll kill everyone that it's going to kill, and then it'll run its course, and we'll be done with that section of it.
Yeah.
That might be 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
But our brain right away puts a number to that and does the calculation with that. And so right now, when you don't know, depending on who you are, your brain is going to freak out. It's going to be like, well, I can't do it. 10 years? I can't homeschool my kid for 10 years.
Right.
And suddenly you have this like horrible anxiety because that math in your brain is just going, we can't do it.
Right.
You're done. Like
Right.
we're out of gas here.
Yeah.
And so that's why, again, the amount of stress, but then the duration, if it's set, is very different if the duration is open. And you see some people going, we got this. No worries, folks, we got this. And other people literally like fingernails dug in going, we're in a lot of trouble, folks.
Yeah. I know in a number of the conversations that I've had over the last week, it's interesting how there are some who really are looking at this window as, for them, it's dark. It is really dark. Like they're like, I'm not sure if I'm climbing out of this. And there's others that are looking historically, hey, we've been here before. We've climbed out of it. Look at this, look at this, look at this.
Yeah.
And they're just like, hey, even if it was 6 months, they're kind of, they set those big pictures out. They're going, worst case scenario.
We got this.
Yeah. And so I'm sure that this kind of scenario plays well to certain people who are predisposed maybe to a rosier picture.
And if you put all of us optimists and all of us pessimists in their own rooms, chances are it wouldn't be a problem. Marry one with another,
Yeah.
or someone who's a roommate who's a pessimist and then an optimist.
Yeah.
This is going to drive them nuts.
Yeah.
Because one's going, guys, look, it's not going to be that long. The other ones are going, you're an idiot. It's going to be a long time. And what they're fighting with is that, again, their brain's doing a bunch of math to say, can we make it through this?
Let's jump ahead. So you mentioned the problems that this stress is creating or where it's coming from. But then you got on the solution side and you started talking through ways to beat the stress or just cope with it. Why don't we talk about, first of all, the role of goals? Whenever I hear someone, I don't know, I just baggage in my past, too much motivational stuff or whatever, goals just seems like, but there was something in what you talked about on Sunday with goals that I think resonated deeply with anyone who's listening to that thing. So let's just go there. Specifically, what kind of goals were you talking about that seems to create hope in the middle of a real stressful scenario like we're dealing with?
The article I based this on was an article on self-harm, so suicide. Some of the current research on suicide is connection to hope and hopelessness. And when they looked at people, it was almost like, and this is my interpretation of the data, if you have nothing but hopelessness to think about, you go to hopelessness. And so if you can go to something else, if you can go to a goal that you have hope about, you have to be able to have hope with it that you can achieve it. Remember, I don't know, years back we used to talk about BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, which basically is a goal you can never achieve, but you have to set it. And if you can achieve it, it's not a big enough goal.
I think that's my scar tissue right there is a BHAG.
Basically, it's a goal where you fail. Like that's what it's designed to make you fail. Now, you'll stretch as maybe to try and get there, but you'll fail. Our psyches don't handle that well. Again, our brain's doing that math of, can I actually do this? Wait a sec, this BHAG is so much bigger than I am. There's no way. And so your brain just kind of collapses on itself.
Sure.
But you can all feel it. When you have a goal that's small enough, it's achievable enough, all of a sudden you're going, hey, I kind of feel motivated on this thing. If you're never running and you say, I want to do an ultra marathon in 6 months, that'll kill you. But couch to 5K? You're like, actually, so I only have to run 5K. So like it's under an hour. I can do that. And so there's something about the goal that has to be small enough. So not BHAG, it's the opposite direction. Make it smaller. Make it even smaller than that. Jordan Peterson from our book club, which has been fantastic, shout out to all the book club people, he talks about make this goal as small as you can. It's completely opposite. But again, it helps you go, oh, I can do that. And now it gives you something to focus on, not the length of time or the amount of stress we're carrying, but actually, you know what? I am going to learn to order my lunch in Spanish. I am going to learn this.
I had a buddy who just said, I just need to be a little bit better than yesterday. And there was something about those words that resonated with me. I just went, like he was, doing these push-ups instead of, he just like, I just need to do one more than I did yesterday.
Here's the interesting thing about that that's beautiful, and this I'm going to bring another research. I want to do more than I did yesterday. Self-referencing. Most of the time what we do is we reference others. I need to do a goal that's better than Jeff.
Yeah, that
And
can
suddenly,
be defeating, yeah.
right? And even if I
Yeah.
can do better than Jeff, my partner says to me, "You're a pretty fit guy." And I'm always like, "Oh, no, I'm not." She's like, "Name 10 people that, we have this game where we play."
Yeah.
And I'm measuring it against the elites that I can think of, anyone who's better than me, and going,
Yeah.
well, I'm not as good as them.
Yeah.
And she's measuring it against people who don't do as much as I do, right?
Yeah.
Same idea, but we're just referencing completely different things.
Right.
If you go, I did a 10K in an hour, this time I want to do a 10K in 55.
Right.
That's
right.
pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, Diane says, love the little goals idea, Vince. It was great. Natasha said, I feel like there's not enough time in the day to complete everything that is expected of us. Being a parent, teacher, gymnastics coach, employee, wife, that can be so defeating when you're already, I was just talking, to someone that works with us this morning, and she's like, I already know I'm not going to get everything done today that I need to get done.
Yeah.
And just talk about the defeating weight of that.
Spiral to hopelessness,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Or maybe it's not
100%.
even, let me clean up my language. It's not the spiral to hopelessness, because hopelessness is always there. It's the focusing on the thing that's already there that can drag you down. So it's not that it creates hopelessness. Hopelessness is already there. It just kind of allows you to tie into that piece that takes you to that dark place. But let me, before I go there, that goes.
I'm curious if you guys.
But let me just jump in here.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with someone I love deeply, who was going essentially if I can paraphrase, my list is infinitely long. I find myself drinking too much because what else do I got to do? At the end of the day, I'm like ironing and drinking a beer because I'm going, I have had no fun. I have nothing for me at all.
So the booze can be a source of kind of just letting up on the pain.
Trying to find some level of, again, her list was so big, and that's what I'm hearing from Natasha. List is so big that she's going, it's defeating. And so then you add exercise, eating healthy, dieting, meditation, and it's like, screw this. I'm going to sit and drink and watch Netflix all night and eat chips. And then I'm going to feel like shit tomorrow. And I get that.
Right.
So we said, what happens if you take that list, and what our natural tendencies to do is to add to it? What if instead your one goal is to remove one thing from that list today? Not to complete it, to take it off the list.
To make your list a little bit more realistic.
A little shorter. Not even realistic, just shorter. What if you take that off the list? What if your goal was to remove things off your list, and you could just see her go, that I can do. Not easy, but that I can do. Because if you want me to eat healthy now, and then do this, and then do this one more thing, I'm going to fold. Like, I just don't got it in me.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm curious for those out there who maybe do feel a little bit overwhelmed, what the idea of taking something off your list would do to you emotionally, to kind of allow you to kind of navigate your way in the middle of that stress. Would it lighten it? Feedback, your thoughts on that?
Alison Armstrong has some beautiful work on that area. Her work is really strong.
Kelly Michelle, she says, trying to fill my days with meaningful tasks, but it doesn't take away the loneliness and the craving for more real-time interaction with other adults. I used to think I was an introvert, but now I'm not so sure.
We're an introvert when we're with a bunch of extroverts, but when we're all by ourselves, then suddenly we're going, wait a second.
We need connection.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So my question for her is, how is she creating connection? The introvert, and I'm an introvert. I'm a pretty strong introvert. We find it quite easy to just kind of go into our own corners, and then we start losing connection with the different people that we actually need. And it makes sense because the threat for us, our perimeters are going, there's too much. I need to back off. But then we lose track of the people that we really need to stay in contact with. And that's a hard balance for the introvert. just like an extrovert, sometimes it's hard to find the balance of fun people and intimate people, like closer people.
Mm-hmm.
For us introverts, it's sometimes we pull away to the point where it's like we disconnect ourselves from everything.
Yeah.
And then in moments like this, we're going, wait a second, I haven't called my best friend in 3 weeks.
Yeah, like much of your life can be in the middle of when life was full on. It was maybe resisting
Yeah.
so many people around you or whatever. Now you're in this vacuum, and now the muscle that you need to be able to kind of reach out to throw out a lifeline, to drop a text, to say, hey, look, I don't know what you're up to. Get on Facebook and say, hey, just noticed you there. I'm seeing you. I hope you're doing well, and trying to stir up maybe meaningful conversations with the specific people that you might be looking for.
I heard a brilliant story last week. I think it was this week. Somebody made one of their goals during this time is to call somebody they haven't talked to in a year. Every day, call somebody they haven't talked to in a year. Think about that. That is that goal just literally blew my mind and went, what an incredible way to create connection. Now, the introvert in me is going, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, that's a lot. But I go, wait a second, it's still one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Actually, if I can tie into our last series, when we want to be all alone, that's not introversion. Introversion is we want to either be by ourselves or in a small group.
Right.
When we want to be all by ourselves, that's islanding. It took me a while to parse that out in my own life.
Well, and it's difficult because I think when we've talked about introvert and extrovert, we've often explained how as introverts we recharge when we're by ourselves. Well, I'm speaking on your behalf. We've often said that as introverts, they retreat. Their alone time recharges them.
Alone time or small groups? Both of them work.
Well, I've often heard alone time.
Yeah.
When I'm alone, I recharge.
But if you do the kind of the work carefully, if you research kind of where it comes from, recharge alone, small groups, usually one-on-one, versus big groups.
Yeah.
When we want to be alone and we don't even want to interact with one other person, that's usually our primitives are starting to see other people as threat, and we want to be away from people. And so for all of you islands out there who want to pull back or dial everything down, you'll feel it when things get emotional, you want to dial down the emotion. Tends to be you want to be by yourselves because people are threatening to us. They cause us a lot of stress. So that's not actually introversion, that's islanding. And that's good awareness to know that what your primitives are watching for there.
Diane says collective hope is more useful and more powerful than collective fear. Yeah, there's something beautiful about being able to be around other people that can inspire that hope. You know, if you choose your company carefully, there are some that can spin it the other direction. But yeah, there's a wonderful thing when you get around someone who seems to see some bright light ahead and can maybe lift you in a certain way, and how that tends to synergize people around them.
Have you read anything about emotional contagion?
Talk about it.
I won't say a whole lot. We'll talk about it at some point. That'll come up in a series. And we're doing in our book club, we're actually doing the chapter that talks about surround yourself with the right kind of people.
Yeah.
People who make you better, who lift you up. So I think that's, collective hope's pretty powerful.
So we talked about goals. Kelly, just going back to the one thing, in that isolation and that loneliness that you can find yourself in this time, you know, talking about these little goals, just these little things that you might be able to achieve, making one phone call, reaching out to one person perhaps you haven't seen in quite some time. Maybe something just little like that can start to maybe lighten the weight of the loneliness and the isolation and give you that sense of, hey, things are shifting maybe a little bit in this time.
One of the things I'm trying to do, and I don't know if this fits with anyone, but this is my deal.
Yeah.
Before I would email somebody, now I try and text that same person. It's a little closer. Instead of texting them, I'll pick up the phone and call them. I have my friends who are like, you okay? Like, oh yeah, just in this time I feel disconnected from everyone, and so a call feels closer than a text.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I just got off a video chat with my family. It's like, no, I just want to be a little closer to you. And so my way of trying to combat this is to just try and pick a medium that's a little bit more intimate, a little richer in terms of communication.
Let's just talk about different kinds of goals. You mentioned a number of different ones on Sunday that can kind of find navigate our way through some of the stress by just achieving these little things. And you gave a a whole bunch of different examples. Danielle just shared, my goal is to limit my exposure to news and what I need to know.
That's a wise woman right there.
Limit negative social media and focus on connecting.
I'd say that's a big goal, but I love that. Like how, one of the things that I've been doing lately is anytime someone says to me, hey, on social media I heard this, I go, oh, that's interesting. Let's research where that came from. And then I do the background work of checking it.
Yeah.
I have yet to find a social media ad or blurb that accurately represented the content where it came from. Now, I haven't checked all of them, but I do this pretty regularly. Somebody told me the other day, they're closing the parks. I was like, you can't even drive through the parks? No, I don't think so. You can't get to Banff? Nope, probably closed. No, they're closing the parking lots. And I get it. 1,000 people in a little parking lot, bad.
Some other goals that you mentioned on Sunday.
That made you squirm a little bit.
Being active every day.
Yeah.
Just something simple, even like
Go for a walk.
Go for a walk.
You and Kathy said you guys have been going for a walk regularly lately.
Yeah.
Is it helping?
Yeah, 100%. And it seems like the more regimented it becomes, something happens. Even if you're just trying to squeeze it throughout the day or whatever, and then the weather turns, you go, I don't think it's going to work out today or whatever. Something dies. Whatever that little thing is that you're determined to do. And it's almost like you almost have to just set your alarm and just do it, to make room for it and do it. Otherwise,
because there's something that when you achieve it, you're like, that felt good.
Yeah.
I had a moment where I pushed myself and then I achieved it. We need both the push and the achieve for our brains to get the chemicals we're looking for.
Learning a new skill, fixing stuff around the house, meditating, reading a book.
I should have added that, remove something from the list. That would have been a great part of that.
Yeah, removing something from the list. You know what? Love for you guys to feed in your different goals that you're, weighing out and doing. Stacy, she said, interesting that the introvert and busyness of life has never got me to Friends Church, even though I had always wanted to. The gift of the isolation is that I've been able to check out what you're all about in this online way. It's perfect. It's awesome. Hey, glad you've been able to check us out, Stace. Stace and I work together in the snowboard world.
Oh, really?
Great.
Cool.
You're tuning in, Stace. No, if you have specific little micro goals that you have been thinking about or that you're now implementing, share them on here. It's helpful for other people that are kind of trying to brainstorm and think about ways to do it.
Yeah, we can crowdsource together.
100%. I want to talk about God.
Okay. Go for it.
Well, you spent actually quite a bit of time on Sunday.
Yeah.
Talking about, you brought up the rainbow part of the story and just a problematic part of the Noah story for some.
Yeah, what could be problematic.
What could be for some.
Yeah.
But you went into quite an explanation of different ways and views of God. And I think for anyone that would be listening here tonight who's has got an allergic reaction, even when you hear the word God, you're like, oh, there we go. That's that religious.
I hear that all the time.
Right. So I want to go there. So let's start with the rainbow. The part of the story after everything kind of works out. Noah finds land and it's all done. And the character
works out. The story kind of goes to crap after that. Well, but let's just say it kind of works out.
Well, they find land, all right? Let's just say.
The tiger doesn't eat the lamb on the way out. They're all like, hey, we're all good. I'm going to give you a 20-minute start, and then you're mine.
God made the character God in the story.
Yeah, and I always say it that way.
Yeah, so maybe just go there for a second. Why do you always say the character God in the story?
So when you study the Bible a lot, and this is my background and yours as well, Jeff, what you realize is how God is expressed is very, very diverse.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use the word God here is not, I'll deconstruct that in a second, but when they use the word God, it's multiple different words that we're translating to a single word, God or Lord. So we have a number of different takes on that concept at very least. Second, that concept of God that we use the word God for is pretty consistent with the culture around them who also expresses God in the way they are doing, and it evolves over time.
I have a feeling there's a few people whose eyes are glassing over here. Let me get to really the meat of this.
Okay, so here it is. The character God doesn't mean that's God. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
The
So when
character
God
God-
says, puts up the
When
rainbow.
the character God in the story says, I put the rainbow up for this, that is a character in a story that is not necessarily an entity that we would call God.
Yeah. So when and the reason you really parsed that out on Sunday was to say that when God says, "Look, I'm putting up a big rainbow," the character God in the story says, "There's a rainbow in the sky now. Now every time you see a rainbow after the rain,
There won't
that
be
is
any-
my promise that there will never be chaos again, or a flood, whatever, incredible tragedy, crisis, whatever."
And then we look
Again,
back through history and go, okay, well, how many floods did we have? We have this crisis, we have this crisis. You know, this one's not going to be a big one compared to some of the plagues that have come through.
Right.
Like, this one's going to be fairly small because we actually have medicine to deal with it.
So what you're saying is, if God said there would never be another one, that God lied
Yeah.
because there were many.
Or, again, let me push
I'm
back
just
a little
being
bit. and say-
crass, but-
yeah, you're being a bit crass. I don't know that I can see it that way, but some people can.
Okay.
And so for the people who can see it that way, this story is easy and the
Yeah,
rainbow's
great
beautiful.
point.
And I
Great
love
point.
that.
Yeah.
I love that for them.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fit for everybody.
Right.
And so what I wanted to say is, if your path is nice and clear through this one, thumbs up.
Right.
If your path isn't nice and clear, like mine isn't, where you're going, wait a second.
That-
If the character God is actually the God I have to believe in when I use the word God, I'm in trouble.
Who
And so-
says those kind of things, who I then fact check, go back on the internet and see what actually went on, and then you go, oh, wait a second, that
That's not
wasn't
gonna work.
necessarily true, or I don't think that was true, and so, all right, so then that opened up a whole
Yeah.
can of worms for you with regard to the different ways we see God. Now, someone out there might be going, I do have this warm Father God, kind of Gandalf, white hair, heavenly Father picture of God out there, looking down on me, caring for me, loving me.
When you go to the Sistine Chapel and you look up at that ceiling and you see that vision of God,
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
right.
And if
right.
I could go there, if everyone could go there, we wouldn't have a problem.
Right.
The
And-
problem is that God, and again, someone asked me, why don't we teach the Noah story in Sunday school? Because it's about genocide.
Yeah.
It's set in a world that the character God says, I'm killing
gotta kill everyone."
everybody.
Right.
No, not I got to. I'm choosing to. So that character wants to wipe out all of humanity less 8 people. So if that character is how you see God, I can't do that.
Right. So some people
Some people, no
will
worries.
get caught on that technicality. Some people have no problem with this God, as you described him on Sunday, with this one view of God. Gandalf.
I use the word
who's-
old man in the sky. He usually has a beard,
Right.
loving, often.
You're not meaning to be pejorative, but there's that picture, or are you?
What's
Well,
pejorative
you're
about
not
old man?
looking down at someone who would see God in that way.
The wisest gods in our tradition are always old.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
young ones are kind of the dumb ones, right? That's how we classically do it.
Right.
Old, wise, young, dumb. That's how
Right.
it goes. So old man in the sky is like this wise character that's watching over you.
You call that super being.
Super being. So it's this idea of it's a being, it has, like us, it's just better. It's like Superman.
But that's not the only way you can view the more than.
And the reason I want to be so clear here is if somebody goes, I can't do that one, therefore I'm an atheist, my answer is no. That's not your only option.
Right.
In fact, if that was my only option, I'd be an atheist too. Because again, genocide, that doesn't work for me.
Sure. So there's a couple other
Yeah.
versions.
So in our tradition, we have tons of versions, but some of the big ones are super beings. So it's a single entity up in the sky that knows a lot, is really powerful, but it's an entity. You'll often see that the character in the God says. That's what they're referencing. And that's traditionally how their culture expressed this.
Sure.
As we evolve, we start getting this idea of something that's more than being. You know, an old man in the sky isn't everywhere, so therefore there's a sense of God's there, but he's not over there. And so you see this play out of like, well, hey, wait a second, this idea of beinghood is limiting. You can only be in one place at one time. That doesn't make sense. So suddenly you expand this idea to say, what if we let go of being and say God is a force
Sure,
or
a higher power.
something, yeah,
Sure.
that's everywhere. But it's
Sure.
not
Yeah, is it-
closed in an entity or being.
Sure.
And then my
So
favorite
you
is
call that hyper being.
hyper being.
So there's super being, kind of the Gandalf.
Beyond being is hyper being.
So hyper being is just, there's just something out there, a massive force,
Yeah.
energy,
We
life.
use the word more or
Sure.
the more than, right? It's
Right.
something more.
Yeah, or we can't wrap our heads around it, but there is something deeper, wider, bigger than us out there.
And then there's this idea that when we love each other, the act of love is actually God. So not driven by God, but actually it's God. That is the God. And that's kind of a beautiful picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so what you'll see with people is they have different ones that they like, they resonate with. Sometimes they shift. Someone's in a lot of trouble. A lot of people are referencing this being that's all powerful and could save us. There's a shift back to that. I get that. But it's not just, what do you call them, Gandalf in the sky or atheism. That's not your only choices.
Right,
There's
right.
much broader sense of this.
Sure. So typically, we have these kind of conversations with many who will find Friends Church going, look at, I'm not looking for organized religion, and I don't even know if I'm probably atheist if you're going to ask me. But
And usually they have enough biblical knowledge that they'll say, any God who's going to kill everyone in a flood or like tell a nation to wipe out another nation, I'm not into that.
Sure.
So I'm just going to let that one go.
So typically, then we start talking about these different ways of understanding what might lie beyond just us as humans and ways we can refer to that. And so often, as we describe these different kind of views of God, someone can say, well, actually, yeah, when you start talking about love and how someone cares for someone else in uncommon ways, when scarcity is abounding right now in this kind of world, and there are people that are going out giving their hard-earned cash to help someone they don't know, that is so unexplainable to me. That must be something deeper and wider. That must be God, that act there.
And there's a way then, so in that particular act, you can feel close to God. When I love, the act of loving other people, the act of being, caring for people, taking care of them, helping people, all this stuff, that love, you can feel the closeness of the divine there, often anyways. And so if you're feeling like, man, I don't feel this, do something beautiful for somebody else and just see what you feel.
Right.
And so I'm going, it's not just you have to believe in some character in the Bible that created a bow and said, I'll never do chaos again. That's not your only option. You can do it all the way over here, and you have this beautiful experience. Now, again, if the character of God in the story who makes the bow works for you, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to challenge that. I'm just trying to broaden it out so more people can come on board.
So let's bring all of that,
Yeah.
these different views of God and the way that we see them, and kind of relate it back to one's ability to cope in the middle of the stress and the pressure. What does your view of God have to do with us being able to handle the chaos of our life right now?
Let me shift the question just a hair, because the way you're asking, it's an interesting question, but let me just shift it a hair, and then we'll see if we can get to where you're going, because that's a pretty big one. Right now, there's a lot of stress on us, and there's a lot of stress over time. We've talked about this, right? As we explore this idea, we tend to want something that's solid. Tell me how many days we're going to be in here, right? Tell me how much stress. Tell me how bad it's going to get. Tell me how much money I'm going to make. I don't, just lay me off already. At least then I'll know what's going on. We want something solid again. Does that make sense? And so as we look through our lives, we find ourselves moving towards this craving for certainty. And so the reason I told the God piece is to set that up, to say, chances are, as chaos increases, our desire for certainty will increase with it. And so you're going to see a lot of people kind of hammering down and kind of locking themselves into this, like, this is the way it is, or this isn't the way it is. And some people are locking down this view of God. And so you get these people saying, this is who God is. God promised this. You can take that to the bank. And people are looking at going, well, that doesn't give me any certainty. In fact, that pushes me away. Now, for some people, that locking down helps.
It actually helps them.
And other people, it pushes them away. And they're going, well, now I have to throw that out too. Like we have enough craziness. I've lost my job. We're locked in my home. And now I got to throw out God. So the reason I talked about the God is to give you options so that that's not the thing. But it can also be used, if you flip it upside down, which is your first question, if you can lock down on a certain view, it feels nice. but it also comes at a cost. If you lock down and say God is the character in the story who creates a bow in the sky and says chaos will never happen again, at some point if too much chaos happens, all of a sudden now you got to throw that out. And so not only are you going to have whatever chaos is, now you got to throw God in the midst of all this. So like, talk about doing the wrong thing. And so for me, I wanted to help people and say, it's okay for us to crave certainty. I understand that. We all do it. Be mindful of it. Be mindful of it relationally. I'm just locked down. I can feel that. But then also be mindful of how you do it religiously. Because if you have to undo that right now, you don't need more stress.
Let's talk about the different ways that we do go looking for certainty in these times and how easily it is to lock down in different ways. Can you think of some examples that you see even yourself in these moments right now, the stressful times where you go, ugh?
Has anyone other than me felt their primitives freaking out? Like moments where also your primitives are just like redlining, like there's threat everywhere.
Are there particular circumstances where you go, oh, I'm always on the edge in this way? Or is there a specific thing that you just know, oh?
On Sunday, I remember feeling it. Sunday, so we finished the service, all that was involved with that. I had a couple meetings after that, and then finally it was done. And I could just feel this kind of, like, I could feel my brain going, if I can't do exercise, I don't know how I'm going to do this. It's not going to work. And I could feel myself locking into this, like, if my life isn't the way it was before, if I can't go dirt biking and climbing and doing all the things that I love to do, I can't do this. Now, the reality is I can. But as my stress level goes up, as I'm kind of more and more worn out, I can feel that desire for certainty locking in, not in a good way, in a really bad way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And so as we watch people do certainty, you know, even as a partner, when you see your partner locking down into certainty, even in a way that you don't like, be kind. Be like, I get what's going on for you. And I'm not going to suddenly undermine it and show you how, you know, you're full of shit and that's not true and Kenny's full of shit and this isn't going to be the way masks don't work or masks work, right? You start doing that, you're missing the point underneath it is. This is a stress reaction. And so when someone says to me, you know, my friends were like, this is what God is. And my first reaction is to be like, really? But going, wait a second, no, you're under a lot of stress right now. Now's probably not the time to challenge that. Now's the time to just sit with you and be like, I get it.
Well, I appreciate all the different people that are weighing in here. I know we've kind of jumped around, grabbed onto a bunch of different things. I want to wind this up. Let's just look. Do we have anything that we want to talk about for like midweek here? What's going on? I think we covered. You talked about this act that this guy is doing. Was there something else vision-wise you wanted to mention?
I want to just keep, if you can, anytime you see someone do something beautiful, taking water in some way, making the world better, post it someplace.
Yeah, please.
I heard a story the other day, a couple, so they did two things. One, they committed to calling someone they haven't talked to every day, that they haven't talked to in a year, every day. I was like, that is beautiful. So I need to call my relatives, I need to call my long friends. Beautiful. They also said they're going to do one random act of kindness every day. I was like, oh, that's beautiful. Like the first day I did something, me and Ellie drove around and did some stuff for some friends, and it was really fun. And then a week later, that's all we done. I was like, to do it every day, like that's an impressive goal. So I'm just watching little things that you can do. I sent flowers to my downstairs neighbor who's kind of struggling. You know, I've been reaching out to friends and saying, hey, I know where you're at. So look at little ways you can make the world better, especially with your partner. Through all this stress and then the stress of getting everything online, like it's taken I've been away a lot, and I can feel it on my partner. She's like, dude, you haven't been here much. I'm like, yeah, you're right. When I am, it's like you're just trying to wind down so you can go through it again. And so how do you take water to your partner? How do you take water to your kids? They're probably driving you nuts right now, but what can you do?
Roy says, I feel being appreciative of the small things helps. Just even in the solitude, feeling the cloudy sky and self-reflection is a huge thing for me. I mean, even just these little things that you can do that can lift yourself, that put you in that place to then start thinking, okay, who around me needs a lift? if we can get ourselves kind of net positive, so we're not working out of a continual negative space, then the water stories start coming. So if you're finding, even you've been impacted by someone around, I know last week we talked about showing some appreciation for some of the frontline workers. And I've heard different stories of people who are now really working hard at stepping out into different pockets where they see, they're in the grocery store, or they're, the attendant at the gas station or whatever, just going about out of your way to do that. Look for little things that you can do, and let's spread those stories around.
Our run club, we've been doing virtual run clubs. We can't run together anymore, so we'll run on our own, and we take pictures, and then we send them to each other. It was our run club leader just came up this week. He's like, take a video of your favorite trail and take a video of you be there, and then tell everyone why you think this is a great space.
Love it.
And so just like, he's just inviting us to do this little thing to create more connection. So it's not even he's doing it, although he's doing the video. He just encouraged us to do it. And I was like, oh man, what a great idea. A little more connection.
This week one of the apocalypse was really talking about making headway in the middle of all this stress, whether that's through goals, through letting a little bit loose of the need for certainty.
Or just being mindful of it when it's there and giving it some compassion.
Remaining open.
Yeah, be compassionate with it.
Right, not locking down if you can. We hope that this has been helpful in getting your wheels turning, get you wrestling with perhaps things that you are doing even unconsciously, or sometimes just being able to name the fact that, man, I feel stressed right now, and that's okay. Sometimes you have to name it to tame it, and being able to just acknowledge it and say, okay, well, I can't fix everything. Maybe I can just do one little thing a little different tomorrow. We hope you'll try that. Thanks for tuning in. Look, at this coming weekend is Easter.
Yeah. What a different Easter, huh?
Kathy asked me tonight, she says, hey, do we want to do turkey? Are we allowed? I guess, hey?
We're one of Ellie's boys he just got isolated, so he got his scratchy throat. So now, of course, there's no chance at all.
Family gathering.
Right, so we're going to cook meal and then drive it over, drop it off, ding the bell that's in the car and wave at them, right? But there's still stuff you can do, right?
It's a different time, but we are going to do a big Easter service this coming Sunday.
It's not going to look like normally where this place is packed out and everything's good, but I think it'll be an Easter story that's appropriate for now and appropriate for how do we navigate this moment.
Yeah, I'm excited about this week's message.
Good.
Actually, I think it's going to be awesome. We have a number of different things going on. The music's going to be fantastic. There's actually a little surprise in the mix too. So it'll be a good Sunday. So you'll want to tune in. That'll be Sunday morning at 10:30.
And don't end the conversation here. Send us an email, Jeff@Friend Church, Vince at Friend Church. We'd love to hear your comments. We'd love to hear kind of where you're going with this. Thank you to all the people who responded after Sunday. It was fantastic.
Yeah. We're still trying to tool out what format works best for you guys to be able to engage with some of the stuff that we're doing. We think if we can keep the conversation going, if we can get you thinking about what maybe you heard on Sunday that you've already forgotten, perhaps there's a chance this is going to get traction so that you actually do something with what we're talking about in the gym. And so if you know of a different way that we can do this, that will help more and more people get kind of moving, we're open. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys Sunday morning. Have a great week, hey? Take some water out there. This is where music would be nice. We'll just kind of